Welcome back to B&G's Top 5, where we give you the top 5 definitive things on topics that you can imagine or that we can imagine. B, I see that you have someone with you. Why don't you introduce him?
How you doing, Venom?
I'm doing good.
We got Venom on today. The Venom in the flesh.
The Venom! Oh my goodness. We've been trying to have Venom on for a very long time, but due to scheduling conflicts, he just hasn't been able to make it until now.
He's been going touring, I think, around the U.S. with your speaking gigs and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Venom is a very famous American poet, and he goes and gives motivational speeches to inner city kids. So he's doing the Lord's work, but in a different way.
Lucky to have him.
We're super lucky to have him. Venom, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't you introduce the topic for today, G?
So today we have an amazing podcast. It's going to be the top 5 things that every Christian man should be looking for in a woman. Now, just as a disclaimer, B, Venom, and I all have very different top 5s, and because we all look for, or have looked for, in B's case, different things in a woman. So keep in the back of your minds that Venom is currently single, I'm currently dating someone, and B is married. So we're coming at it from 3 different perspectives, which I think should give a very well-rounded perspective.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too.
You want to start us off, Venom, with number 5?
Yes, I would. So number 5 for me on the thing I look for in a woman would be they need to be adventurous, just willing to drop everything and get on a plane and fly halfway across the world. I just like a woman who's willing to do things, try new things, doesn't want to just be at home all day.
And it is all about the journey, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Or is it about the destination?
No, definitely the journey. As the great poet Miley Cyrus once said, it is the climb.
Words to live by.
Oh my goodness, Venom. Never gets old. Anyway, so with that being said, I'll go straight into my number 5. My number 5 is kind of like, it kind of serves as a number 5 and number 1, because I think that every Christian man, this should be like this should be the prerequisite. And so it is that she is a Christian. I believe that as a Christian man, you should be looking for a Christian woman. I believe that if you're dating outside of Christianity, that it can cause problems that you don't have to have. And so I just think that the best thing is to find a Christian woman.
I'd agree with that. What's the verse? Let me look real quick. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says you do not want to be unequally yoked. So.
Oh my goodness. It has already begun. The equally yoked memes. I can see them now.
All right, I'll go with my number 5. B's number 5, which is beauty. Now, notice how my number 5 is beauty and not my number 1. Saying that it is one of the main things I looked for in a woman, who I found in my wife, is that she's just so beautiful. And I think it's not just an outside appearance, but I find beauty in a lot of the things she does and a lot of the ways I see her, and just an overall view of a woman, not just on looks purely. But looks do matter.
So, like, is there a difference between, like, I don't know, beauty and, like, hotness?
Gabriel, you ignorant person. Of course there's the difference between beauty and hotness, which my friend Venom will explain right now.
Yeah. So to me, hotness just has to do more with lust. Much more has to do with just physical attraction. You can think someone's hot and you're don't want to date them just because they're a horrible person. Beauty has more to do with the person themselves.
You can actually be protective over like a girl you know, like a friend who you could think she's beautiful, and so but like you wouldn't think she's hot. So that'd be a core difference too between those two things.
Yeah.
A core difference? Venom.
Yes.
Inside joke. Love to be a part of one day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Venom, hit him out with number 4.
My number 4. So my number 4, I put soft spoken, aka they do not talk too much.
Venom doesn't like his women to talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Venom is a strong believer that women should not speak in church.
Exactly. Okay. Well, what I was going to say was that I don't like a woman who's too overpowering. I know there's some women who tend to talk too much and they dominate conversations and they don't listen to what other people are saying. And I just don't find that quality attractive. I find it much more attractive a woman who actively listens to people. Whenever she does speak, it's with wisdom and discernment. And so I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, right on.
Well explained, Venom.
Well, thank you.
Well explained.
You won't get as much hate mail for correcting that.
We do get a lot of hate mail, specifically from, not to name names, I'm just going to choose the first name that pops in my head, Roy. This person named Roy, he sends a lot of hate mail, doesn't like our top 5s, but, it's fine. We love him. Roy, we love you. No matter what anyone says about you, we love you.
Us.
That's all that matters. So at least 3 people love you. Anyway, besides talking about alias name Roy, we'll go ahead and continue into my number 4, which is similar to B's number 5, but with a little spin, and it is attraction. So I would say that attraction is physical, absolutely. I think that you should be physically attracted to the person that you are interested in, dating, married. I think that's like a pivotal thing in your relationship. So definitely be attracted to them physically. But attraction manifests in a lot of different ways. You can be attracted to the way that someone talks, or the way that someone carries themselves, or the service that they do, or their interests, their likes, their dislikes, the way that they treat their family and friends. And so I just think to be attracted to someone beyond just physically is one of the most important things for a successful relationship, because physically speaking, you are going to love and experience your partner's youth, and they're going to love and experience your youth, but that's going to fade. And so to be attracted to them in multiple ways beyond that of just the physical, I think really sets you up for a long-term successful marriage and relationship ultimately. So that's my number 4.
Okay.
I like that. Was that a good number 4, you think?
It was all right.
All right.
Coming from the fake Cowboys fan who is currently wearing a Buccaneers shirt.
Mike Evans.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for telling us where you go to university or when. How's your ring, by the way?
All right, so B's number 4.
Oh, did you not say yours?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
B's number 4 is respectfulness. I think something that's very undervalued, and it's mentioned in the Bible. Ben, do you know where it's mentioned in the Bible?
Yes. It
Ephesians
is
5.
mentioned in Ephesians 5:33. Let me pull it up and just read the verse real quick. Sorry, I have it marked. Ephesians 5:33. It says, "However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband."
Mm-hmm. So I think both of these are crucial things that guys need and what girls need. If a girl does not show you like any sort of respect at all, then the relationship pretty much, there's no way it's going to work. A guy can feel really insecure really fast when he doesn't feel respect from the person who's supposed to have his back all the time. Most important thing for a lot of guys. And it's my number 4, which is still really high. So that's B's number 4.
Right on. Yeah.
Number 4.
Let's keep the ball rolling. Venom, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is I want to see in a woman good motherly qualities.
Mhm.
So ultimately, I want to have kids someday, and I look for that in a wife, and I want someone who I think is gonna make a good mother. So good motherly qualities I look for are kindness, compassion, caring, putting others before yourself, because I know parents, or at least good parents, ought to be doing stuff like that. So I look for that in a woman because I think that would make a very good mother.
Yeah.
Solid.
We'll keep it going. So when I originally come up with the list, I had something different, but I decided to change it up right before we went on the air. So it's the first time that B and Venom are hearing this. But my number 3 is humility. I think that the person that you should be with ought to be humble, and I don't mean like not loud. Like I don't necessarily mean like a quiet person, but just someone who like is so in tune with the fact that they are not the center of the universe. And the reason why that's so important to me is because for a long time that's how I lived, and so I don't want to be that way. And so why would I want the person that I'm with to be that way? And so like ultimately I want the person I'm with to be humble and focused on the true center of the universe, which is God. God is the center of everything. He's the creator, the maker. He is perfect and glorious. And I think that humility is just an amazing trait for a woman to have, and for anyone to have. But just specifically for this list,
I know I have an extraordinary amount of humbleness.
Yeah.
I think that went over Venom's head. Nothing does go over Venom's head. His reflexes are too fast. He would catch it.
I mean, I think that was a solid change. I like that. You do want a woman who's humble, someone who thinks of herself too often. That's definitely not someone you want to be with. Not a very good motherly quality.
Yeah, right on.
That was a good one. All right, I'll go to my number 3, which is kind of like Venom's number 3, but more of a subsection of it, which is a woman who is very caring. And I would almost do just caring / kindness. And a woman, I would say that looking at that in a woman can be the most attractive to a guy, I would say. Just seeing somebody who truly cares for other people is very meaningful, and it just makes you like someone so much easier if you see them being kind to, I think I've heard them say like being kind to a waiter or something like that is very like appealing, I guess. Makes you just like someone like almost instantly, or at least I think it should. Some guys it doesn't, I guess, but.
And I think like caring like is such a like interesting thing because there are a lot of people who are like nice but not necessarily caring or genuine or considerate. And so I think like to be caring like that couples with a lot of other attributes. I think that I would say like caring and being a caring person means that you're a considerate person. You can't really care for someone if you're not really considering them. And so I think like that's a super important thing to look for. So I totally agree with what you're saying, B.
I think it even goes past the point of just politeness, because most people I'd say are polite, but caring goes a little bit beyond that, and you can tell the difference. But just want to make that last point. Go ahead, Venom.
I'm on my number 2, right?
Number 2.
Number 2.
My number 2 is I want someone, and I believe this was B's number 4, but I want someone who respects me. And I'm even adding a little onto that, respects me enough that they trust me to lead them. I believe in the biblical view of marriage that the husband's the head of the household, not that the wife doesn't have an important role, but I want a wife who's going to respect me and allow me to lead her. I know in today's culture, we talk a lot about strong, independent women, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to a certain extent. But to the extent that I want to marry you, I want you to be dependent on me as well as me dependent on you. Marriage is not a union of two independent people. It's two people becoming dependent on each other. And so if you want to be strong and independent, that's great. I just don't want to marry you. Stay single. And there's nothing wrong with it. The Bible praises singleness, but I definitely want someone who respects me and would allow me to lead her.
Yeah, that's really well said. Really well said.
Solid.
Well, that leads me to my number 2, which I must say got a lot of pushback when I first announced it, and I didn't expect it. And so I'm going to do my best to articulate it in the most kind and sincere way. So my number 2 is family life. I think it is very important that the girl that you're interested in has a good family life. And to kind of explain that a little bit more is that I think it's really important for the girl who you're interested in to have a good relationship with her dad, because the dynamic of that relationship will affect you as a husband later on. It will. And so a daughter's relationship with her father is extremely important. And I think that's a really big aspect of who you're looking into. So I think if you're looking into someone, get to know about their family. The second aspect of that is that I think it is so cringy when people have poor relationships with their in-laws, or their in-laws don't like them or don't enjoy their company, or you just kind of avoid each other and see each other at Thanksgiving and Christmas. My idea of a family is a family that is with each other constantly, that love being around each other, that they're not just stuck with one another, but it's a joyous occasion when they get to reunite. And if that's not possible because the girl that you are interested in doesn't have a good family life, then I think that's just something to really consider. Also, this one is number 2 on my list because it's very near and dear to me, but it's not one of the things that I'm saying, like, if there's a girl who you're very interested in, you guys have, amazing chemistry or whatever, and she's a great Christian girl, but she kind of has some baggage because of her family, don't date her. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, for me, that's something that I was very wary of just because of things that have happened to me. But anyway, I think it's super important for the girl that you're interested in to have a good family life. And that's why I put it as my number 2.
I think Venom was saying that he didn't like this one at all, or you as a person specifically, because of this one.
Yes. Well, half that is true. I don't like that person.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
Oh my God.
When G mentioned that there was a little pushback when he first announced that, he was referencing me. I did push back against this one a little bit. For me personally, I don't think family life is that important to me, because I know that sometimes women come from bad families and they might not have a great relationship with their father because their father was a bad person. And so to me, that wouldn't be one of my considerations. But
I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective, because I think it's not so much the relationship between the daughter and the father, which that is important, but I would look for if they do have a close relationship and their family doesn't like you, or specifically her father doesn't like you. I think that's a huge deal, and would probably be a deal breaker to me if her family's close but none of them like me. I think that'd be a really big deal.
And that's why, I put both of those things, because I think both of them are very important. And to kind of address what Venom is saying, I am not saying that there are not amazing women who don't have a great relationship with their father. That's not what I'm saying at all. I know amazing women who haven't had a father figure in their life or have a bad relationship with their dad, and they are some of the strongest and most wonderful people that I know. But it's just different, and it impacts the woman for their whole life. It molds them, and I think that it can be challenging, especially if the person that you're with wasn't able to face those problems and to address them well, and not everyone does. But then kind of what B was saying to address that is like, that's exactly what I think of is not being liked by the family, and that's just really tough. Yeah.
Well, I think we saw all sides of that issue.
Yeah.
So
well, I'll say for me, I mean, I'm really close to my family. So if my family doesn't like someone who I'm dating, then I'm probably dating the wrong person. I'll say that. But yeah.
Unless your family's wrong.
No, they wouldn't be wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize for thinking that they could be wrong.
No.
Good man to say his family's always right.
My family's often wrong.
Are they?
Depending on if they're watching or not.
Okay. Good answer. Yeah. Okay. So
my in-laws are great though.
Okay, that's cool.
As long as they're watching.
As long as they're watching. But I guess this number 2 for G just shows that we don't have to all look for the same thing in a woman. Good Christian men can look for different things. And some Christian men can be wrong. Yeah, that's true. That's what we want to get. I'm often wrong, actually. Well, but
no, Venom. You
I mean, I was talking about
poetry speeches to kids. You're never wrong.
That's true. All right, I'll go to my number 2 then. My number 2 is a lot more lighthearted, and it would be humor. And this is something that I love in my wife, and I definitely looked for in a woman, because I think laughter is a powerful thing in a marriage, and a girl who has a good sense of humor can keep your relationship young, and I feel like it lasts, whereas a lot of other things won't last, such as like, well, I might get in trouble if I say some of the stuff that won't last, but I'll just say humor does last, and I love a good sense of humor in a woman. So.
What do you like about your wife's sense of humor, if you don't mind me asking?
I like that she laughs at my terrible jokes.
And memes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nobody laughs at my terrible jokes and my memes.
Yeah.
Your memes are like from a different century of humor. It's old people humor. But like old is in like 95 plus humor.
See, G is one of those kids that doesn't understand any older people.
Yeah, kids these days.
They're just so obsessed with themselves and everything. All right, Venom. To your number 1.
You're right. So to my number 1, mine is very simple, and I think this was mentioned before in some of the other lists. I want someone who is kind. Plain and simple. I want them to be kind. And I put that as my number 1. And I should put as a disclaimer, probably my number 1 was Gabe's number 5, which is be a Christian. But I wanted to just put out there what I look for even before that. Because if I just walk into a place, I don't know if a girl's a Christian just by looking at her hair color. But I can tell how she treats others, how kind she is to others. As B mentioned previously, how if you're at a restaurant, how they treat a waiter. If you're at a store, how they treat the clerk. If you're, just passing someone by, how they treat them, and how they treat strangers, how they treat friends, how they treat their family. I want someone who's kind. In the Bible, in Proverbs 21, it talks about it is better to live on the corner of a rooftop than live in the house of a quarrelsome wife. And I can tell you, I would rather live on the corner of the corner of the corner of a rooftop than live in the house of an unkind wife who is a jerk. That sounds like one of the most miserable things you can do with your life. I'd rather be single my whole life than have to deal with that. So
Yeah, and that goes back to like having a respectful woman, because if you have a woman that respects you, they're going to be kind to you, and they're going to treat you well, and so that's super important. And with that being said, I'll go into my number one. My number one is equal spiritual maturity. Venom mentioned it earlier. He said being equally yoked. And so just to kind of explain that a little bit is the Bible describes two Christians as being iron that sharpens iron. And it is my personal belief that if you are someone who is very spiritually mature and you're dating someone who is very spiritually immature, then you will constantly be pouring into them and sharpening them, but they will not be reciprocating that for you. Not that that's necessarily bad. That's exactly what discipleship is in a certain way. But where that can cause problems is that can get very exhausting and very tiring for one person. Either way, if you're spiritually mature and they're spiritually very mature, then that can get very tiring for the person that you're dating, for the other person. And so to be with someone who is of comparable spiritual maturity, you guys will be growing together in Christ's likeness at the same time, hopefully, because you guys are pursuing Christ before you pursue one another. And I know that that's the kind of relationship that I have. And it's wonderful because we mess up and get mad at one another and argue and bicker, but ultimately our main focus is not one another. It is Christ. And I know that she pours so much wisdom into me and that I pour wisdom into her. And that's just because we're both following God. And it's not really our wisdom, but it's theirs.
I'm sorry, are you talking about your current girlfriend right now, G?
Yeah.
Which one?
You guys are going to get me in trouble.
Just kidding.
That was very nice to say about her.
Yeah. She is the best. Hopefully we can have her on a podcast. But I don't know. I don't know if she would want to come on, but we'll see.
That's good.
So
I found that one interesting. I just wouldn't have thought about that, to put that on my list. But I mean, it's pretty solid. I like it better than your number two. I'll say that.
Oh my God.
yeah, it's a lot better than that.
Okay.
All right, I'll go to my number one, B's number one, which is hotness. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah.
My number one is a girl who has, or a woman who has her priorities right. And what I mean by that is also a woman who has the right priorities.
Oh.
You see what I did there?
I see what you did there.
So I would say that the ideal priorities that a woman should have is God first, her husband second, assuming she's married, and then third family, and then you could say whatever next, probably friends or something like that.
Job, maybe.
Yeah, job.
Charity, hobbies.
Well, if the woman works.
Yes.
Not all women have to work.
No, I'm not saying all women have to work.
Or speak in church, according to you.
Okay, but yeah, I think it's really important that she takes care of each of those in that order. And I think it's really important that she served God first, then her husband, and then the rest of them. And I think it's important for us guys too to have our priorities in check, and that we should be serving God first, our wife second, family third, and then so on and so forth. And I think that is something that we all could look inwardly and through the power of the Holy Spirit, better ourselves for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And if there's any women watching our podcast, B mentioned this, you want to date a guy who has their priorities in order too. It's not just guys dating women, it's the reciprocal too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And everything that we list, I mean, you guys might have a completely different idea. This is to all viewers. And so if you guys have any comments, concerns, suggestions, email us. We're going to provide you guys our email address in the link below. Please like and subscribe to our videos and to our channel. And we will turn post notifications on so that you guys can be aware of every time that we put out a podcast. B and I know we'll be doing more of like the laid back podcast like we did with the top 5 fast food restaurants. So if you guys are interested, just stay tuned for that. But is there anything else we need to say?
You didn't want to give a shout out to our number 1 email?
Yeah. So I cannot believe I forgot to give a shout out. Thank you so much, zsquiggalicious@gmail.com. We love you. You are our number 1 subscriber. And just so that you know, B and I came up with this shortly before the podcast. But we will be sending you your very own thank you email. So just be looking for that in your
Wow.
I know. Out of the busyness of my schedule, because I know that I'm the busiest person in the entire world, especially now with nothing going on in my life.
Yeah.
And B, being even busier than that.
That's true.
We will take the time, find it somehow to send
Well, we might get a receptionist to do it.
We might get a receptionist.
But
a
he's
male
male
receptionist,
because we don't
we're
want
not
to be
biased.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Venom, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We hope to hear from you soon. And with that being said, take care. We'll see y'all next time.